Okay, so we're starting. This is Daf Test today. Daf Test. So yesterday there was a brisa which the Gemara stumbled upon about another drasha to tell you that the yibum does not override arayos. And over there the Gemara thought that it says Tzoros v'arayos, and that means you need a pasuk for arayos also, not only for Tzoros. And the Gemara said it doesn't mean that. Less on Tzoros shel arayos. But anyway, it was a new pasuk to teach the same thing as we knew already before. It was a brisa long ago that the Gemara brought that the Rabbanan say yevamos yavo aleha. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that says aleha. Then another pasuk says v'yishalach v'salo sikach l'sro l'galos v'salo aleha b'chaya. And that aleha, the Gemara said that it tells you achos isha, that a wife's sister not to marry even aleha, even if it's a question of yibum. And then it says l'sro, that also not to co-wife. That was one drasha we had. That's called Rabbanan's drasha. And yesterday we had drasha, which is the same conclusion, that you're not allowed to marry a tzara or ever for in the place of yibum, but you have a different source because it says ulukacha v'yibma. And today the Gemara is going to juggle between the two. How come he doesn't use his psukim? How come he doesn't use his psukim? That's the beginning of the daf today. I mean, it's really yesterday's daf still, but here it goes. Gufa, about the two dots. This is Chesam Advei still, about 20 lines up. Gufa. I hope the coloring is helpful and not disturbing. This is the advice we had yesterday, a new drasha for this source of the source of this halacha, that yibum doesn't override erva. And yesterday the Gemara said that it doesn't mean erva, that you don't need a pasuk for, just tzoros erva. And this was the pasuk ulakacha v'yibma. And the Gemara says, Akasha, where's any source here, anything about tzoros? It doesn't say tzoros in the pasuk. It says that yevamos yavo aleha v'lakacha lo l'isha v'yibma. It says this is the parsha of Yibum and Parshas Kiseitze, that it says if there are two brothers, one of them dies, so the brother-in-law should take her and marry her. So where do you say anything about a tzara? The other drasha we had litzror, that had the word litzror, something about a co-wife. But this pasuk of Rebbe, where do you say anything about tzaros? That's the Gemara's kasha. Immediate tzaros. Ksiva halacha doesn't say tzaros. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about tzaros. How could he darshan that this pasuk says less of tzaros v'arayos? Where do you see tzaros over here? The Gemara says the second kasha, but the second kasha the Gemara does puts aside. Behold, tzaros militzron nafka. What is he going to do with the Rabbanan's drasha? The Rabbanan had a drasha, and that was what we learned. Lo sikach litzror legalos evosol. So why does he need a pasuk to tell you tzaros? What does he do with the Rabbanan's pasuk? This kasha the Gemara just puts to the side. Litzror mapik Rebbe Shimon. Rebbe is going to use that pasuk for something else, and I would just say for right now, it's not our business what it is. There's another drasha later on. Rashi brings it down. We'll see it later on in the Masechta. A few times we're going to do this in this Masechta until we get more familiar with all these different shittas. But there's a Reb Shimon coming up later on, so the Gemara's not going to deal with that. He has a drasha for that pasuk. We'll see eventually. But back to the main issue. Does it say any place in this pasuk about ulakacha, the yibma? Does it say anything about tzaros? The answer is yes. Tzara. It does say tzaros over here because Hachikamar, or the question that he has tzaros, where does it say it? The answer is im kain lemakra v'lakach mayu lakacha kol hecha deika trei lekuchen v'boy nasafai sharia v'lo tavayu asir. That's the answer. Since it says ulakacha that he should take her, the pasuk says that if there are two brothers, one of them dies without children, so the brother should take her for a wife. Ulakacha lo lisha, he should take her for a wife. The fact that it says ulakacha, you should take her, so there's a deal. Of course, it's a drash world. It's not an pshat, but it says you should take her. The fact that it says you should take her means that there are two available ones, and he should take any one that he wants. He should take one of the two. And if there'd be two possible wives to marry, and he could take one, he could take either one that he wants. Then that's the case when I'm telling you take one of them. Take one of the two. But if you can't take any one of the two, so you can't take anyone. If there's one of them you can't take anyone. Of course, it's a drash, but that's the drash. And here you see tzaros over here. Since the pasuk is mashma that only could take one, if you could take two, it means if he has two wives, you could take anyone that you want. Then you could take anyone you want. But if you can't take one of them, you can't take the other one either. That's where Rebbe saw in the words of lakacha that tzaros are aser. That not only is the erva aser, but the co-wife is also aser. Since he can't take the erva, he can't take the co-wife either. And then v'yivma, the second part of the drasha says v'yivma, there was lakacha and v'yivma. That the Gemara said already on top of the page yesterday. That the whole issue of marrying a co-wife is only when she's also brother's wife. But if there be stamot tzara serva, that's not a brother's wife, there's no issur. Means yesterday we gave the example about a chosisha, that he has a wife's sister's co-wife. There's no issur in tzara serva. There's no issur stamot tzara. There's only issur if the tzara is also b'mokum yibum, means that there's a brother's wife. That's when it's us. So we finished Rebbe's drasha. Everything seems fine. That's how we learned out this halacha, that it's tzara serva is us, and it's only usher when it's a brother's wife. Otherwise, there's no issur of tzara serva. Now the Gemara juggles back. Why the Rabbanan? The Rabbanan means that Rashi we had long ago, that they learned it out from Aleha, that it says Litzror. That was what we've been going with for the past 5 daf. That was the source of this halacha, that Yibum doesn't override Arayis, because it says Aleha, which is talking about Yibum, and then it says Litzror. So what do the Rabbanan do with the Rebbe's drasha? It means the psukim of Lekacha and Yibma seem to be extra according to Rabbanan. We stumbled upon Rebbe. He has a different pasuk, Lekacha v'Yibma. So what did Rabbanan do with that pasuk? Rabbanan, Hai Lekacha ma'yavdile. What did they do with that pasuk? They need the pasuk of Lekacha. Rabbi Chanina's drasha, which we're getting a lot of information now, which we'll use later on in the Masechta, but these are new halachas. Once someone did yibum, he did yibum. He married his deceased brother's wife. Now, if he wants to divorce her, could he? Does he have to do chalitza or something like that? So no, once he marries her, once he does yibum, it becomes a regular marriage, and he wants to divorce, he divorces her with a get, and even bigger chiddush, he can even take her back again. That now you don't say that it's a brother's wife without yibum. Once he marries her, he becomes married, and everything before that is deleted. It's his wife, and if he wants to marry her again, he's not to marry her again.
Only if he doesn't.
Only if she doesn't marry somebody else in between, like anybody. But you think that once that really it's a brother's wife, you're not allowed to marry a brother's wife. You're only allowed to marry because it was yibum, and here he did the yibum already. Now we divorced her, so why can't you take her again? So that's a big chiddush. So here you learn out to Lukacha means he becomes a regular wife. When you do yibum, it becomes a regular wife. And the other pasuk v'yibma, it says, and also Rebbe used the drasha of v'yibma to say that it's only us tzara b'makom erba. He b'makom yibum. He used the pasuk drasha. The Rabbanan don't need that drasha. They have a pasuk from someplace else. So what did they do with the pasuk? Al korcha. That the yibum is al korcha. That means that even if she didn't consent, if a marriage, if a regular marriage, if she doesn't consent, there's no marriage. He thrusts on a ring onto a woman and he says, "You're married to me." She says, "No," so there's no marriage. But by yibum, even if he did it bal korcha, also it takes effect. We talked about a few days ago. If she could say she doesn't want to marry him, mukashrin over there talks about that he's has diseases and things like that. So then over there says ein kofano, so you don't force her. But there is a zika. There is already when she marries somebody, she's also included in the marriage. Is that if the husband will die without children, so then she'll marry the brother. And here it says that even al korcha, even if she didn't agree, also it's a good yibum. We'll get to the sugya when we talk about kofin. That sometimes she allowed her. Could she say that she can't marry him?
We're not talking about the case of where there's chalitza.
I'm not following.
Maybe I'm not following. Where's this korcha?
A brother died. A man. Chalitza means if he doesn't want. If he doesn't, chalitza means he doesn't want. The whole pasuk of chalitza. That's what the pasuk says. That she comes to Bezin and says he doesn't want to do yibam. Like what's with this guy? He doesn't want to lakum shem Yisrael.
She doesn't have a choice.
It talks about it. The pasuk talks about him, but by her, when she gets married, she's already obligating herself to the yibam also, and
the guy that died,
to the husband that died, right? That if he dies without children, so she's obligated. That's part of the deal. It could be. We'll see later. We'll sort of sugya that sometimes she can say that she can't tolerate him. He's a mukashchin. He has problems. But we'll see the sugyas later on, if that's only one exception or any kind of other excuse that she could be. But without any excuses, the Salkorcha Rashi over here says that even as far as the b'di'eved, if he did have relations with her without asking her questions, also it takes effect because she's really connected already. So we answered the question. The question was, what are Rabbanan do? They found these two psukim were Lakacha v'Yibma. So they have two drushes to use for it. Lakacha says that once he marries her, it's a regular marriage, and to dissolve that marriage, he uses a get, and he could even take her again because it's already deleted. Everything before that, all the history is deleted, and Yibma is al korcha. The Gemara now wants to know how is Rebbe going to know, the more that toggles back. What's Rebbe going to do with the Rabbanan's new two halachas? They just learned two new halachas. Megasha begeto machzira, and also al korcha. How does Rebbe know those? He used already the pasuk of ulukacha v'yidma. The Rebbe, the best Rebbe Chanina Meleisha nafka. It says ulukacha lo leisha. He should take her for a wife. So it didn't have to say ulukacha. Lukacha he used already. Lukacha he used something else. But the word leisha is enough to teach that she becomes a regular wife, and this halacha that megarsha begeto machzira is enough to learn out from the word leisha. He doesn't need the word ulukacha. And how about the other halacha al korcha? How does he know that? Al korcha mi yevamo yavo aleha nafka. That pasuk, not the yevamo yavo aleha biyivma. Till now we're dashing the pasuk biyivma yevamo yavo aleha biyivma. So Rebbe says I don't need the biyivma for that. Yevamo yavo aleha is enough reason to be mashma that he doesn't even bal korcha. So everybody's happy so far. So almost one more thing that wants to clear up, that Rabban and Rebbe have two different drashas for this halacha that we're looking for, and then the Gemara is tackling back and forth. What does each one do with the other one's drasha, with the other one's pasuk? And now the last pasuk, the last thing the Gemara is concerned is Rebbe hayoleha my avadlei. Means when the Gemara started and it asked, what do you do? What was the question again? The aleha. The Gemara asked, this question on the side, nafka, that Rabbanan learned it from Litzror. Really, the Rabbanan, if we remember, that recall that the Rabbanan said it says Aleha, which means Yibum, and Litzror means even a Tzorah. And that was the halacha where you learned out that Tzorah Sarva is Aser, and Allah said that it's only Aser for Mokum Yibum. Both of these psukim, maybe he doesn't need. He learns it from someplace else. So the Gemara before, in the parentheses over here, asked the kasha about Litzror, and the Gemara refers to us to Rabbi Shimon, it needs it for something, but the Gemara didn't talk about Aleha. That the Aleha that the Rabbanan used, what does Rebbe do with it? That's the rest of the sugya now. What does Rebbe do with the pasuk Aleha? He doesn't need a pasuk. He dashes from someplace else. So what does he do with the pasuk of Aleha? Now we're going Ramish far away. But just to point out that we're not talking about the Aleha of Yevamo Yeva Aleha. That was only a code word to find out that the word Aleha is referring to Yibum. We're talking about the pasuk that it says by Achos Isha, where it says when he marries, it's also to marry your wife's sister. And over there it says Lo Sikach Litzror, Lo Sikach Isha Lachosol Lo Sikach Litzror Legalo Servoseha Aleha B'Chaya. That word Aleha, that what the Gemara is going to talk about. What does Rebbe do with that? Rabbanan needed to tell you this halacha about Yibum, about marrying a wife's sister, not marrying a wife's sister, but Mokum Yibum. But Rebbe doesn't need it. What does he do with that pasuk Aleha? So now we're going off mamash on a cruise. The rest of the page now is going to be different halachas altogether, nothing to do with yevamos, and very nice information to know, but nothing to do with yevamos. There's a halacha in Parshas Chatas where we had in last week's Parshas Vayikra, talks about a korban chatas, and it says many different kinds of sin offerings. The one we usually know is the last one, about a regular a layman, individual, nefesh kisechta, that's an avera, so he brings a korban chatas. But before that, it says other kinds of korban chatas. It talks about the kohen gadol as an avera. It talks about a bezdin made a mistake. That the whole tzibur forgot they made a mistake. Bezdin paskin wrong about something that's chayiv kores, and the tzibur did avera, so they bring a korban. Then the tzibur brings a korban. Also, Asher Nasi Yachta talks about the king. If the king doesn't avera, then he also has to bring a special korban. So there are four kinds of chatas talks about over there: the kohen gadol, the bezdin, the king, nasi, and then about a regular individual. So now we're going to learn halachas about this. This all is the Maseches Harayos. Maseches Harayos, that's the Masechta where it talks about all these halachas. So it says that only what kind of avera are we talking about when bezdin made a mistake and they paskin something chatas hakol? They made a mistake and the tzibur did according to their mistake. What kind of avera was the mistake? If it will be something that was done amazing, the liability, the punishment would have been kares, and if a yachid would have been chai v'chatas, really what we're talking about, the chatas, the shkaga, it's something which b'mezid is kares. Something which, if we would have done the very b'mezid, would have been chai kares, and Bez made a mistake in that kind of halacha, so then there's going to be the din of a chatas hakol, the paralim davar shel tzibur. V'chein HaMashiach, and also the Mashiach means the kohen HaMashiach, the kohen gadol. The kohen gadol also that it says he brings a special korban chatas. What kind of aver is it talking about? If it would have been a zdona kares, it would have been something that amazing would have been chayv kares. That's when the kohen gadol brings his special korban chatas. Below, also, this is a posting in Parsha Shlach that it talks about when there's a mistake done by avodah zarah. Someone did avodah zarah by mistake. It talks about two parshas over there. Both if the tzibur made a mistake, that means that the bezdin Sanhedrin paskin that something is not avodah zarah, and people did it. That's one case. Another case is that a yachid, an individual on his own, made a mistake about avodah zarah. So he brings a korban. Over there it says what the korban is. But here it says that what kind of avera of avodah zarah? Not every kind of avodah zarah is going to be chayiv kares. There's some aspects of doing avodah zarah that's not the whole serious. He didn't mama serve it. And over there, it's not going to be chayiv kares. So the pasuk that it says in Parsha Shlach for bringing a korban for doing avodah zarah is only a type of avera of avodah zarah, which would have been b'mezid chayiv kares. That's a Mishnah in Horius. And another Mishnah says over there, U'tanan nami, again, the same thing. Then the following is going to be, this is a title. The title is, we're talking about a various that b'mezid b'chayiv kares and b'shogig is chayiv chatas. Now I was going to say, with the different types of people to bring different kinds of kabbanas. There's going to be a yachid. Maybe we'll highlight it as we go along. There's going to be a yachid. A yachid may be kizba osira. A nasi may be soyer. Mashiach ubezdin. That's two different people. Mevi and par.
Is this all part of the?
This is all the Mishnah. Mishnah in Horius. It's probably says on the side where it is. Horius Tesam Aleph, and it's over there. Perek Beis, I think. So it says the mitzvahs that if it would have been the mezid chayiv kares and shogeg is korban chatas, what kind of korban does each one bring? A yachad, the regular individual, he brings either a female sheep or a female goat. If it was a nasi, a king who did that avera, then he would bring a he goat. If it would be a kohen gadol, the Mashiach, the kohen gadol, or Bez made a mistake in the pasuk in Pam Yisrael, so then they bring a par. Like it says in the pasuk, this is all in Parshas Vayikra. Now, if it was avodah zarah, till now was talking about regular kol mitzvah Shabbat Torah. The Mishnah continues. How about it was an avodah zarah avera, avodah zarah? So then, yachid, nasi, and Mashiach are all the same. They don't have anything special about them. The whole difference between the yachid and nasi and Mashiach, that the different kinds of kabbanis is only by kol mitzvah Shabbat Torah. But when it's avodah zarah, so then there's no distinction between the yachid, nasi, Mashiach, all of them are and seira. They bring a female goat. And a tzibur is different by avodah zarah, maybe in parvasar. They bring a bull and a goat. And what is that? Par la'olah, sar l'chatas. That the par is not the chatas. The par is going to be a korban olah, and the sar is going to be a chatas. All that is a mishnah. This mishnah in Horius that says the halachas about a korban chatas. Again, it talks about if there's a kol mitzvah Shabbat Torah and if it's avodah zarah. If it's kol mitzvah Shabbat Torah, that's Parshas Vayikra, and it says that a yachid brings a choice of female sheep or female goat. A king brings a male goat. A Kohen Mashiach or a Bezdin, they bring a par, a bull. Avodah zarah, that's Parsha Shlach. So then there's no distinction between the Yachid, Nasi, and Mashiach. They're all considered individuals, and they bring a female goat. There's no choice here. Before it was a kizba osir. Here's only a sira. And the tzibur, they don't bring the same like a tzibur boards for a regular avera, that they bring a par. Bezdin means a par. Here it's a par v'soyer, but it's also not the same kind of par. Here was a par for a chatas. Here is a par for an olah and a soil chatas. But the main thing that Agmar wants to know is that everything we're talking about is only when it's avera, which b'mezid would be chayiv kares. How do you know that? How do you know that both by the regular averas, kol mitzvah Shabbat Torah and avodah zarah, that it's limited? These kabbanas are only limited to a kind of an avera that b'mezid would have been kares. Means when you learn the Torah, last week's parsha, it says if someone does an avera, brings a korban chatas. It doesn't say what kind of an avera. Any kind of avera. Maybe somebody. What's an example of an avera? Shanas, very nice. Someone put on shanas, so it says you do avera, bring a korban chatas. So how do you know that it's only a serious avera which is called? That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. That's the no say. That's the no say. You learn the Parshas Vayikra, a person that doesn't know Torah Shabbat Peh, he just learns the Chumash. It says if you do an avera, you bring a korban. So what kind of an avera? Any kind of an avera maybe, and also the Bezdin or the Kohen Gadol or the Nasi. Maybe the whole Parsha is talking about any kind of an avera. How do you know it's talking about Afka, something which is chayiv chatas, which is chayiv mezik, chayiv kares? Not immediately. That's the big question. Not immediately. So here the Gemara found Allah. That's what we're looking for. He said it says by Achos Isha. It says not to marry a wife's sister, and over there it says the word Allah. Lo sikach l'tzroa l'kalosa ever saw Allah. It says the word Allah. And now, not immediately. Tanu Rabbanan benoda chatas hashachatu Allah. They found out of the avera. This is talking about the tzibur. So they found out the avera that they did. Rabbi Omer, Namakan Allah, and I'm Allah. Here it says Allah, and also by the din of Achos Isha, not to marry your wife's sister, it says Allah. Wonderful. That's what you use the word Allah for. Before, the question, we're even questioning Rabbi. Rabbi didn't have Allah. That's what the Gemara said in the bottom of the page. Rebbe, what does he do with the word Aleha? So Rebbe himself answers the question. Here's Rebbe, and he says, you use the pasuk of Aleha to tell you that the din that Yechayiv Chatas for Avera is a kind of an Avera, which is Aleha, which is similar to the case of marrying a wife's sister that of the SS Kores. That's the classical case of a Chatas, and now anything that fits under that category is going to be Chayiv Chatas. The rest of the Gemara now is mamash extra credit. We got the answer already. The answer is that you learn out from Allah that the only chayiv a korban on an avera which the mesa would have been a chayiv koros. But now the Gemara once we're on the subject, and we said these all different kinds of distinctions. If it's a yachid, nasi, mashiach, bezdin. So the pasuk we brought now only talks about a bezdin. This pasuk of v'nodah chatas eshachatu Allah. That's talking about the tzibur. That's the bezdin made a mistake. But how about the rest of them? The yachid. Then the Kohen Gadol, the what did I say? The Kohen Gadol and the Kohen Mashiach and the king and individual, the Yochid. How do you know those? The pasuk we brought only talks about the Tzibur. Ashkelon Tzibur, Mashiach Minalan. How do you know that the Kohen Gadol also only brings a korban chatas when it would have been Zdon Lekores? T'chsiv Mashiach Lashma Sa'am. I mean Mashiach Kesibur. That when it talks about the parsha of the Kohen Gadol, it says that the Kohen Gadol sinned. It says it's the guilt of the people. When the Kohen Gadol does a sin, it's the guilt of the people. So the Gemara is making a drash that it's the same thing as the tzibur. Just like the tzibur, we said a second ago, that was the word aleha to say that they bring the korban chatas, the chatas hakol, the paralam davar, when there was a avera which was chayiv kares b'mezid. So too, the Kohen Gadol is the same thing. Lashma sa'am. How about a yachad and a nasi? How do you know they also only bring a korban chatas when they did an avera which is chayiv kares b'mezid? Hashem mitzvahs is exer shav over there. Vasachas become mitzvahs Hashem, but each one of them it says the same thing. That's how you know that applies to them. So all this was about regular averas and parshas vayikra. How about also in parshas shlach, where it talks about the korban chatas of avodah zarah, or there also only a kind of avodah zarah which would have been chayiv kares b'mezid. The love of avodah zarah b'mezid. How do you know that? El al davar shechayav el azam lekares v'achik gasa chatas. How do you know? There's another exer shav that it says both by parshas vayikra and parshas shlach. One by regular avera, one by avodah zarah avera. Both of them say in the alam me'enei ha'ida that the enei ha'ida means the Sanhedrin they made a mistake, and both of them it says the same word me'enei. That's exer shava. Since we just learned out that by the tzibur, by regular avera, it's only when it's chayiv kares. So too the avodah zarah that the tzibur brings avera of korban force only when it's not kind of avodah zarah that should have been chayiv kares. How about the other three? Yachad nasi Mashiach by avodah zarah. How do you know that it's only chayiv korban by avodah zarah if it would have been chayiv, if it would have chayiv koros b'mezid? Meve'im nefesh achas. After it said over there by Parsha Shlach where it talks about the tzibur doing avodah zarah, and then it talks about the nefesh achas, an individual. The nefesh achas includes everybody. Im nefesh achas echad yochid ve'echad nasi ve'echad mashiach b'mashma. That the word nefesh over there is referring to any kind of individual. There's no distinction between if he's a Kohen Gadol or the king. It doesn't make a difference. They're all individuals. But over there it says after the Parsha of tzibur, it says nefesh achas. And that vav ve'im, this vav ve'im vav, this is the word vav this is the letter vav most of our linear rishon that the ve'im is coming to be a continuation of what I said before. And since before I spoke about the tzibur doing avodah zarah, and we just proved that it's only when it's a kind of avodah zarah which is chayiv koros. So too the next parsha of the yachid, which includes a yachid, a nasi, and a mashiach, also most of the rishon v'elam yitachtem and elyon, that the second parsha is learned from the earlier parsha. The top parsha is talking about the tzibur, and over there we say that it's only when it's chayiv koros. So too the next parsha where it talks about a yachid is also talking about avera which would have been chayiv koros. So all this was to explain how Rebbe does with the word aleha. But Rabbanan back on the Rabbanan used aleha already. That's how the whole thing started. They used aleha. So how are they going to know this whole halacha here? We said that this aleha, this is how Rebbe knows that the thing starts from aleha. That's the reason he knows that it's an avera which is chayiv koros b'mezid, because he learned from a chosisha with the gzeir shav aleha. But the Rabbanan used up this brush already because they learned out something about yibum. Chosisha is koros and only tzara serva. How do they know this halacha that they only chayiv chatas on an avera which we chayiv koros b'mezid? A different drasha, the way that Rabbi Yeshua taught his son. He said, the pasuk says, and then it says, this psukim on Pasha Shlach. This is the avodah zarah parsha. And there it talks about bringing a korban for having done avodah zarah. So over there it says that Torah Chasi Elochem Lo Osei Bishgaga, and then the next pasuk says Va'nefesh Shetasa B'Yadrama. If someone does it b'mezid, then he's chayiv koros. So he makes a drasha from the next parsha. The next parsha is talking about migadev b'mezid, and he's chayiv koros. That the rest of the Torah is going to be compared to avodah zarah. Not avodah zarah in the next parsha. When it does it b'mezid, davar shachayavin al zdon lekoros v'alshiki gos achatas. I've called davar shachayavin al zdon lekoros v'alshiki gos achatas. Torah Achas, I think, is referring to avodah zarah over there. Is that true? 1 second, please. Rashi said the pasuk that says "V'nefesh asher tasa b'yadrama v'nichnusa." The whole parsha is talking about avodah zarah, and the avodah zarah b'mezid. That it says if he does it b'mezid, he's chayiv koros. Ashkechan Yachid B'Nasi or Mashiach Vein Ba'avodah Zorah Uvein B'Shar Mitzvahs. This drasha that we just said will teach us both for Avodah Zorah and for Shar Mitzvahs, as far as that has to be a way which is chayiv koros b'mezid, because we have this pasuk that said Torah Achas is referring to all the mitzvahs, just like Avodah Zorah. It's only something which would have been chayiv b'mezid. But how do you know? Tzibur B'Avodah Zorah Minayin. How do you know? 1 second, I got the wrong place. Again, I'm sorry. Torah Achas Yelachem Lo Osei Bishgaga. This is the pasuk in Parsha Shlach, and you learn out the whole Torah is only something which is chayiv like avodah zarah, which is mezid. Just like avodah zarah is only something which is chayiv mezid b'koros, so too davar shachayav and al zdon lekoros v'alshiki gos achatas. Now the Gemara asks, Ashkechan Yachid B'Nasi uMashiach Ben B'Avodah Zarah Ben B'Shar Mitzvahs. But see,
they only chayiv if it's chechatas.
Oh, it's only chayiv if it's don lekoros. Sibur B'Avodah Zarah Minayin Amar Kra V'Im Nefesh V'Lamed El Yom Mitachton. Here goes the opposite. It goes before we use the vav that before the given was the top parsha. If you look at it, the top and the bottom, first talks about the Sibur, then it talks about a Yachid B'Avodah Zarah Parsha Shlach. The V'Im Nefesh. So till now we had learned out from Parshas Vayikra to Parshas Shlach, Tzibur. Over there, both Tziburim, and then we said that the Ve'im is going to connect the next Parsha of Yachid to the Parsha on top of a Tzibur. Now we're doing the opposite. Now the given is the second Parsha. Here the Parsha of Yachid is the given. That's the Parsha where it says that it's not Gamezid. And then the Ve'im is going to be the connecting factor to say the Parsha before is also similar, and that's also talking about Dafka Aveh, which is Chayiv Koreis B'mezid. Here the Gemara says, Ashkechan Yachid V'Nasi Mashiach Bein B'Avodah Zarah Bein B'Shar Mitzvahs. This thing that it says Torah Achas Yelachem Lo Osei Bishgaga V'Nefesh Asher Tasa B'Yadrama is talking about a Yachid, and over there it says that and also other mitzvahs we learn out, but that's all talking about only a Yachid. How do you know it's Tzibur B'Avodah Zarah Minayin? How do you know that the first parsha, the earlier parsha, which talks about a Tzibur B'Avodah Zarah, how do you know also that's only chayiv if they did aver, which would have been chayiv koros b'mezid? That's the va'im. Amakra va'im nefesh. But here's the opposite. Not tachtam elyon. Here is elyon mitachtam. Here learn out the previous parsha from the second parsha. Since the second parsha is proven already that it's only when it's vera, which would have been chayiv koros b'mezid. So to the previous parsha, but the tzibur is also talking about aver, which would have been chayiv b'mezid. El tzibur b'sham mitzvahs b'nolan. The answer is jalef me'enei. Now, how do you know Parshas Vayikra? How do you know tzibur by other Averis and Parshas Vayikra that it's only when it's a B'mezid would have been Chayiv Koros. That again is going to be Exer Shava Me'ene to learn out the Tzibur of Avodah Zarah to the Tzibur by Shar Mitzvahs. One more kasha. The Rebbe, hi Torah Achas Maya, but they toggling back again. Once he found this new pasuk, so what does Rebbe do with this pasuk of Torah Achas? He doesn't need it. He learned already different drasha. He brought it later time. He needs it for the next drasha. To fish him, Masinu Shachelak Takasa Ben Yechidim Lemerubim, Yechidim Beskilo Lefikach Mamon and Paula, Merubim Besaib Lefikach Mamon and Avad. This is talking about Avodah Zarah, and it's talking about Yerani Dachas. What's Yerani Dachas? If there's a whole city that did Avodah Zarah, it's not the Tzibur we speak about. Tzibur means that the whole Am Yisrael made a mistake. The Bezdin Paskin, the son of Avodah Zarah's mutter, that's what we say Tzibur. But here it's talking about a city. And by a city, there's a special din by Avodah Zarah that if they did it b'mezid, the punishment is different than if a Yachid did Avodah Zarah. What's the halacha? That first of all, a regular yachid that did avodah zarah is chayiv skila, but a tzibur, the city that did avodah zarah, they kill him b'sayif by the sword. Irni dachas is b'sayif, and also the difference if their money gets destroyed. That by irni dachas the money also gets destroyed. Yechidim, there's a difference between yechidim and Reuben. Yechidim, an individual does avodah zarah, he's chayiv skila, and his money is saved. Means his money doesn't get destroyed. The Yorshim get the money. But Merubim, if a city does avodah zarah, irni dachas, they kill b'sayif, and also the money is destroyed. Like it says, you burn all the money. So you might think, since you find the difference by avodah zarah, as far as the city goes, so you might think there's such a difference by the korban also. Yachal nachlek b'korban is saying you might think that the special korban is going to be for a city that does avodah zarah. That there's no difference if it's one law for all. No difference if it's a person or it's going to be a whole city. There's no difference. The korban is going to be the same. That's more or less the end of the Gemara. What the Gemara did, we have till there's still about another 10 lines.
Is there a korban for your earning dachas?
The earning dachas is b'mezid. That's what we're saying. The earning dachas that the Torah talks about is b'mezid. Now the Gemara is entertaining the possibility that if the earning dachas, but don't call it earning dachas, but it'll be a city that did avodah zarah b'shogeg, is their korban going to be different? And that's what the Gemara is saying. No, it's not different. You might have thought it's different. Kamash Blan that it's not. So as far as what you're saying,
it's the irni dachas which was b'shogeg.
Right.
Not the din of irni dachas, but it's
right. The din of irni dachas, right. The irni dachas the Torah talks about has been amazing, and over there it says you kill them by the sword and they destroy all of their property. And you might think, since you find such a unique thing about the avodah zarah that a city is different than an individual, so you might think that the korban, if they did it b'shogeg, also would be different. Kamash Mulan Torah achas that is not different. The rest of the Gemara is going to just talk about what would you have thought. What korban would you have thought that they would have brought if it would have been different? Kamash Malan is not different. The halach is that it's not different. But what would you have thought?
Why are we what's not for me? What we
means if you wouldn't have thought anything, so then you don't need a pasuk for it. Time of the Kasav Achman, the Torah Achas Yelachem, Allah Vachayev Amen and Achlak. You just said that only because the Torah says Torah Achas, that's how you know that the Yonid Achas doesn't have a different korban if they did it b'shogeg. If not, I would have thought they bring a different korban. My lysi, which korban should they bring? So the rest of the Gemara is very interesting. I don't understand it, but the Gemara seems to take, like Taisha says, Kasava, Taisha says that the Gemara understands that since they're different, they're going to be some kind of a unique korban. It has to be unique, that there's no such korban ever. That it's a kind of a korban that no one else brings. And the Gemara is saying, look, what kind of korban do you never find? And that's why and I don't understand why it has to be. Why does it have to be a korban that nobody ever brought? I don't know, but that's what the Gemara's for is, that if it's saying that it's different, so it has to be so different that it's a kind of a unique korban. And that's why Chilkiah by Hagmunya is asking, which korban were they brought? Laisi par, should they bring a bull? Sibur b'sham mitzvah suda maisi. There's such a korban already. That's the halacha that Tzibur, the Bezdin, when they made a mistake on Sham Mitzvah, they said Chil Shabbos or something, they said something's mutter on Shabbos and they made a mistake. They realized they made a mistake, they bring a par. So that's already taken. That korban is brought. That's a regular korban. That wouldn't be the new korban. Kizba, you're going to say they should bring a female sheep. Yachad v'sham mitzvah sudamaisi. That's the korban for a regular chatas, a regular yachad that does a avera brings a kizba or a seira. Maybe say a sorry should bring a male goat. No, nasi v'sham mitzvah sudamaisi. That's what the king brings when he does an avera. So that's also taken already. Parallel of a sar chatas. You're going to say such a kind of a combination to bring a bull for a nola and a sar for a chatas. That's also taken already. That's the case of a tzibur. Now we're talking about just the city alone, not a whole tzibur. So what is left? Velamai seira. What's left? That should bring a female goat. Yachid nami hanu karban. That's what we're talking about. That's the korban of a avodah zarah of a yachid. And you want to say that you thought that a city would be different. What would you have said? What is the havamim? You would have thought that you would have brought a korban that's a unique korban. What's unique? Which korban is left? So the Gemara says, I have some kind of a korban. Istrich. Salkadei l'chameina hold b'tzibur b'ara ma'isi parlo of basar l'chatas inunami neisi ipcha. They would have brought. Inami tzarach lo takana. Or we would have thought that they need a korban and they can't bring a korban, but they don't bring the korban like a yachid. Kamash Malan that they bring the regular korban like a yachid. All this was very, very agav, very agav. The whole daf, the whole amud here was really all the more wanted was this Allah on the top to say that why do you have to have Allah according to Rebbe? So we found to learn out that the halacha about bringing a korban chatas is only when it's similar to Achos Isha, which is Chayiv Koros, and the rest of the Gemara came in Agav just to juggle what each one will say with the other one. So that's the end of the sugya, and really it finishes the sugya from the Gimel and Beis. It's been a long stretch, and if someone went away for the past week, he comes back now. He's back into yevamos because all this wasn't about yevamos. It was mostly it got some halachas about yevamos, but they're going to come up again. The main subject was how do you know that yibum does not override arayis? That's like our Mishnah Chamesh Esrei arayis that yibum doesn't override that isra of erva. He doesn't marry his relative. And the question was, what do you need a pasuk for? And we had 3 cases where you need a pasuk. And what is the pasuk? What is the pasuk? What is the pasuk? I said it wrong. I just said that you have 3 cases where you need a pasuk. What the last service was that you don't need a pasuk. You just need it for the tzaras, but you don't need it for the erva alone. But whatever the pasuk is necessary. We had 2 brises, one of the Rabban, one of Rebbe. The Rabban learned it out from Aleha together with the Tzror. Rebbe learns it from the Kacha and the Yevma, and everyone comes out more or less the same. The question was only which pasuk do you use and what do you use with the other one's pasuk. We got some halachas over here that if someone does yibum, so then it's complete wife, and he divorces her with a get if he wants to, and he can take her back again because it's not considered anymore the yibum. Also yevamo, we thought that it's al korcha. Everybody agrees to these halachas. The question was only where you're learning out from, and the whole sugya, the rest of the sugya was to tell us about the korban chatas, both of a yachid and nasi and kohen gadol and the tzibur, that all these are things, and also about avodah zarah, pasha shlach, that the kavanah of avodah zarah is only when it was a kind of an aver that b'meiz would have been chayiv kores.
Does everyone agree that once someone does yibum, they can divorce and take it back?
I think so. I don't know enough, but so far I don't. It's not a right that I don't remember. I don't remember yevamos, but so I don't think that anybody argues. Now starts yevamos. The Mishnah said that there are 15 arayos. Maybe you should put on the chart again. That would be nice to put on the chart, maybe, because we'll see. If I can find it, 1 second. Let's go further. But if everybody remembers the chart we had in the beginning on the Daf, there were 15 arayos over there, 14. Also, and there was a woman over there that was not marked, and everybody asked why was it not marked over there. That was the case of the mother.
The mother. I do have the chart.
You have the chart.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I could put it on. If it'll take a second, please. Where's the?
If you want. Does anyone mind if I found the heat?
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
What am I doing?
Sometimes I'm cold.
Okay, that's the chart. Okay, so if you know, this is the chart in the beginning. We have here the 15 of It's only 14. One is also this is the man who died. This is the live brother. And if the dead brother was married to any one of these women, he was married to his brother's daughter, married to his brother's wife's sister. All these cases, married to his brother's mother-in-law. All these cases, the Mishnah says that he can't do yibum. There's one woman over here that's not marked off, and that is this man, the live man's mother. It could. Why not? It also would have been a good case. It doesn't have to. The yibum is brothers from the same father, not necessarily the same mother. All these cases we said here, the live brother's sister from the mother, is not related to his brother. So his brother was allowed to have married her, and he was allowed to have married his brother's mother's sister, his brother's mother's daughter-in-law. All these cases, the dead brother could have married. And that's what the Mishnah listed all of them, and it listed all these people. Why doesn't it also list his brother's mother?
Isn't it his father's wife? His father's wife.
No. So Leib Yaakov is asking that usually we would think that the dead brother's
father,
the dead man's brother, the live man's mother's mother would be the wife of his father. They have a common father,
right.
And if it's his mother, isn't it his wife? So not necessarily. It was not in marriage. That's called anusas of it. that if
Not necessarily this way.
that he had relations without marriage. So it's not his father's wife.
Right.
It's his father's anusa. That's called anusa mafuta. They had relations with her out of marriage, and he was born. This man was born out of marriage. So is there any reason why his brother shouldn't be allowed to marry her? The brother could marry. That brother could have married his brothers. Well, Reuben and Shimon. Reuben is a dead brother. Shimon is a live one. Reuben could have married Shimon's mother.
Again, they are brothers, right?
They're brothers they have the same father. They don't have the same. They don't have the same mother.
They have the same father. Yeah.
If you look at the picture over here, the same way that we talked about this Reuven having married his brother's sister. How did that happen? Because they had a common father, not a common mother. It's not his sister, it's his brother's sister. That's okay, right?
Mhm.
So it's his brother's mother also. It's his brother's mother and not his mother. So why can't he marry her? Why can't he marry? If it would have been his father's wife, you're not allowed to marry your father's wife. But it could have been his brother's mother without her being his father's wife. So that's, I think people ask, when we saw the chart, why is it not filled in red? Why is it also not there? That's what Levi asked. Levi asked Rebbe, why doesn't the Mishnah also say this case? Nice question. Levi Yaakov, you look troubled.
That wouldn't have any bearing on any of his other relatives. They're all still, because none of them are related to that guy anyway.
This dead brother was allowed to marry all these people. He was allowed to marry all of them. There's brother's relatives, not his relatives.
But now all those people are not from a marriage.
All those people? What do you mean?
Not from the.
These people over here are not
Who are
from.
these people up here that go up?
This is his wife's. This is his
from
wife's.
his wife, not him. That's
Right.
from his wife.
So
Okay,
the
fine.
brother was allowed to marry his brother's
Yeah.
mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay, back to this case.
But
Yeah.
but in this case, his brother's mother, his father had an affair with Leah.
Yes. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Right, but he didn't marry her.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying.
You can't marry, can you marry a lady that your father has an affair?
That's a machlok. We had this question came in Agav. Anusa savit, mfuta savit. Is it mutter or not? So it's a machlokis. It's machlokis, and the halach is that it's mutter. Rebbe holds that it's asa. Even though it's asa, it's not going to be chayv kares. It's not like a wife's. It's not like a father's wife. It's a father. So you're talking about right. That they have a common father. Both these brothers have a common father.
Right.
So it means that his father raped this woman,
Right,
and this child was born.
right,
Okay, so he's his brother from a common father,
right.
but not from a common mother. And this woman is not his father's wife.
Right.
It's just nusas of it. So machlokes if he's allowed to marry her or not. Even if he's not allowed to, it's not chorus. It's not going to be a. That's what the Gemara is talking about. This woman, why is she not mentioned in the Mishnah?
How's she called?
Anusas of it.
Of his father. Of his.
They have the same father.
Oh, they have the same. Yeah, Anusa Sabit.
So that's where the Gemara starts over here. Amalei Levi. I tried to make big dots over here that the sugya is over for the past since the Gimel on the base. That was one big sugya. This now it starts. Amalei Levi Levi. My ears are Tani Tezvav. Listening to Tez 9. Why did I say 15? It should have said 16. And without even saying what it is, you're supposed to understand what he meant. That's the one that's obvious that it was not mentioned in the Mishnah that it could have said. Amalei. So Rebbe told Levi, it seems to me that you don't have a brain in your skull. That's a heavy one, huh? A heavy insult.
Wow.
And we're going to see.
Like Bruce's.
Yeah, but we're going to see that the answer is it's not a foolish question, and the answer is like, okay, it's a good answer. It could be, but Levi at the end is going to still. It's very hard. This sentence is very hard. I have a shot that what he meant to hint to him, but not for the scope of this class. But it seems like he doesn't deserve a big insult. They call him like so a foolish idiot. Like what do you call him? So I think there's a shot. What he meant to say, it was not an insult. I think that he was going to hint him something, but I'll leave it alone. I just wanted to say something that it shouldn't be taken. That's the way the Chavrusas talk. Chavrusas don't talk that way. I think that it means to say something deep. That he gave him something in Kabbalah. But anyway, he meant to say, what do you mean to ask? My daitach imo anusa savit. you mean to ask that I should have mentioned the 16th one, the mother who was raped by his father. That's why it was given on the list that the brother married her, and now that he died, but he can't have relations with his mother. So why not say that case? So he says, what Moshe asked, is it mutter? So it's a machlokes if it's mutter or not. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's aser. So he don't want to get involved. Means that could the dead brother have married her? Rabbi Yehuda holds not. So he didn't want to say that case because the only way go according to Rabbanan wouldn't go according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's why he didn't mention it. Is that a reason to say he has no brain? It's not no. The answer is not a mistake. It's the answer. He doesn't want to talk about a case which is a machlokas. And the more even ask questions, we do see machlokas they talk about. Below, does the Mishnah not talk about cases that are machlokas? Later on, we're going to see in the second parak, it's going to talk about different kind of, not the relationships that is in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah has 15 relationships. There are more relationships that are not so chamor like these. They're going to be drabonans, like Rashi. It's a mitzvah. Does Rashi say what they mean over here? It's a mitzvah. Means the Rabbanan, and it's a Kedusha. Rashi says it means Mamzer, so Nasina. There are going to be other relations that are not going to be so serious. And over there, it's machlokes if there's the Yibum done or not. So, or Chalitza, if they need Chalitza or not. So, and it does say it. So you're saying that our Mishnah doesn't talk about cases in question, cases that are machlokes. You see in the second paragraph that it does talk about cases that are machlokes of Kiva and the Rabbanan. The more answer, the pick can come in. I mean to say in our paragraph. That's paragraph base. Eric Mishon, it doesn't talk about machlokas cases. It just talks about cases that are accepted by everybody. And this case of Anusa Sabu will be a machlokas. That's why I didn't mention it. The more is a conscious that even the first Mishnah is also machlokas. But Bishama is not even a Satsaras Lachim. We still Osrin. The whole din of our Mishnah, the whole din of the 15 arise that the Tsaras also parted from Yibum, the co-wife, that's only Beisilo. Bishama, we're going to see later on. Bishama argues on the whole thing. Bishama says that the co-wives are mutter. This whole thing we had about the Tzror and the Kacha, all these rushes we had to say that the co-wife also doesn't do Yibum is only Beisilo talking. Bishama says that they do. So why is saying it's not a machlokis? He did get involved. He said the opinion of Beisilo, not of Bishama. That the Gemara is not bothered by. Bishama Malcolm Beisilo in the Mishnah. That Bishama is not an opinion. We have machlokis between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbanan. There are two opinions. But Bishama, we go with Beisilo all the way. So the fact that Bishama argues is not a reason not to mention. Bahare. Yes. Ain't a Mishnah. That it's not considered. It's not even considered an opinion. Bishama in the place of Beisilo is not considered an opinion even. The next question is number 16. In our Mishnah, the last thing in our, number 15, I'm sorry. The last thing in our Mishnah, it was have to be number 14. Kala was the last one. But what's the case over there? Maybe the chart again. I don't know if the chart can help us too much on the I didn't really get it onto the chart. But it's not on the chart. What does that mean? That this man,
before he died.
Right. But what's the case of that he's not allowed to marry a what will be the case?
His wife.
This
mean his brother's wife who's died.
His brother. If this brother would have died before this brother was born, he can't marry her. That's partial, right? But now we're talking about that the brother had married with all these arayas. Of course.
So isn't that her? The one who's married to the brother?
His wife?
Yeah.
That's his wife. That's the problem. That's his wife.
And if she were not in the world?
No. Eish Zachav means the one that he's going to do Yibum to. The Achiv, Eish Zachav Shlomo, I mean this man's wife. This dead man's wife, but this live brother never saw the dead brother. If two brothers were living in the same world at the same time,
yeah,
and one of them died without children, the other one marries the sister.
Yeah.
But if they never saw each other, he's not allowed to marry him. It means he was born after the brother died, he doesn't do Yibum.
Yeah.
Why are you saying?
No, okay.
That's not what you said before. Not this woman.
We had that case, didn't we?
This is the Mishnah. This is the case of the Mishnah, right? But it's not on the chart. It's not here on the chart.
Okay.
Now the case of Eish
Zachav. I'm not seeing it in the words. I don't know what.
Every Yibum is Eish Zachav.
The woman of his brother.
The wife of his brother. The wife of his brother. The brother's wife in English.
Oh, the wife of his brother. We're talking about the brother. He's not in the world.
Right. The brother's not in the world. Right. That the live brother never saw that brother. They never saw that brother. But here the case would be the Mishnah's case that he had that the was falling to him. That means that this was three brothers. One, there's a Reuven and there's a Shimon, and there's also a Levi. And before Shimon came into the world, there was a Reuven and a Levi, and Reuven died without children. Levi married that woman. And now Levi died without children. Could this Shimon, could he marry her? I should put a chart. I'll hope to do it for tomorrow. Today it's already too late.
When was
But
Shimon born?
Shimon was born after Reuven died, but he did live together with Levi. So so now he also, now that Levi dies, Reuven also cannot marry that woman because she was once upon a time Meshach of Shalai Ba'alam.
Right.
Even if he was only born after Levi married to the Hebrew.
That's the question. Levi Yaakov got on that. The question is, when was, I'm not explaining it's on the chart now, so that doesn't deserve a chart. I'll do it tomorrow. But the question is, if by the time this Shimon was born, this last brother was born, was that widow already married to the new brother?
To the brother.
If so, there's more reason to say that he could marry her because he never recognized her as a As soon as he came into the world, he was already married to another brother.
Right.
Just his brother's wife.
The second brother's wife, yes. The
Second
live
brother's
brother's wife.
Yeah.
But do you look at the history that once upon a time
She was
usher to him.
both of their brothers' wives.
Right.
So that's machlokas. So to get back into as much as we can do. Last line. The pligi. This is machlokas about this issue that Levi Yaakov said that if he was born after the other brother had already done yibum, maybe he could marry her when he dies. So the Mishnah does B'Katani. So the Mishnah is getting involved in machlokas cases. The Gemara says there are some cases there's machlokas, but there is a case that everybody agrees to. So if he Reb Shimon doesn't argue in a case where he was born before the brother did yibum. Means if this Shimon was born after Reuben had died, before Levi had done yibum, then everybody agrees to say the machlokas is only if he was born when he was born, the other brother had already done yibum. That's a machlokas. But if he was born before the brother did yibum, and then he did yibum, then so everybody agrees that that's not a case, that's not a machlokas. Rabbi Shai says no, that Rabbi Shimon knocks both cases, that even in the case he holds that it's not an even if he was no little Sof Yibum, even if the new brother was born before the Yibum was done. The Gemara says he told Rabbi Shai, he was disproven. So even though there was such an opinion, but he was disproven, so we don't have to consider that opinion. And Rabbi Shimon does agree sometimes there is a so therefore it's okay. It's enough. We could mention it because it's not a machlokas. Everybody does agree there's such a
What does he total mean?
He was disproven, like Mesfei, like that same word. He was a. So we didn't do the rest of the Amud, but I think we'll stop here and we'll continue the rest of them tomorrow. Just to sum up today, the Gemara brought another drush of for the same Allah that we knew that there's no yibum against Arias. Rebbe had another drasha, and the question his drasha, the first drasha was from Allah together with the tzror that it says Baruch Mosisha. This drasha is from Vayibum, where it says V'ulukacha v'yibma, and then wants the drasha to say how do you see tzara over here? Because Ulukacha is mashma that he could have taken one of either one, and if you can't take one of either one, he doesn't take any. That's Rebbe's drasha, and then the Gemara juggles what did Rabbanan and Rebbe do with each other's psukim. It comes out there's also a necessary psukim to learn out that once he marries her, it's a regular wife, and he divorces her with a get, and he takes her back again if he wants. Also, Yibum was even al korcha. We have a case about a mukashkin, which is an exception, but otherwise, Yibum was even al korcha. Then the question was, what is Rebbe going to do with Aleha? The famous Allah that the Rabbanan used, what did Rebbe do with it? He learned out from that halacha that the din of bringing a korban chatas is only by zdono kores, that it would have been zdono kores. without all the details, the Gemara says that all the halachas about a korban chatas, both in Parshas Vayikra and also in Parshas Shlach. Vayikra is about all Averis, and Shlach is about Avodah Zarah. All of them is only when it's a Aver, which would have been Zdon or Kores, and then it's going to be Shekigos Chatas. Aga, we also learned about Parshas Vayikra, the open Chumash that talks about 4 kinds of chatas. It talks about Yachid. In the order the pasuk, it calls the Kohen Mashiach, Kohen Gadol, and then about the Bezdin, then about a Nasi, then about a Yachid. And each one has one kind of a korban. A Yachid brings either a female sheep or goat. A Nasi brings dafka a male goat, and a Mashiach and a Bezdin, both of them being a par. And now we're saying that all of them is only when it's Aveh, which is Don Kares. Also in Parshas Shlach, where it talks about Avodah Zarah, there's only a distinction over there between the Tzibur and the Yachid. Note if what kind of Yachid he is. Yachid, Nasi, and Mashiach, there's no difference. All of them, they bring a Seirah. The Yechidim bring a Seirah. They have no choice of Kisbo or Seirah, Dafka or Seirah. And the Tzibur is a very unique korban that they bring a par for Ola and the Sarah Lachatas. And all that we learn it from. Here the question is going to be, you learn out Aleha to regular Averis, that the regular Tzibur in Parshas Vayikra is Dafka talking about a Aver, which is don't know Kares. And then you have Drasha to learn out the other ones. The Kohen Gadol is going to be Lash Masa'am, and Yachid Nasi is going to be a Mitzvah, different Gzera Shabbos. Avodah Zarah, you learn out because of Me'ene. That's Gzera Shabbos. We have a few Gzera Shabbos over here. And then the Gemara says, and in Avodah Zarah, there's the Vav Mosif, which connects the two parshas. And the contrary one, it goes the opposite. It starts with having a drasha to say that Avodah Zarah, the Yachid, is dafka when it's Don Karetz, and then it goes backwards to the Tzibur of Avodah Zarah, then back to the Tzibur of other Averis. But everyone agrees that Allah is over there. Also, there's no difference about a Tzibur of a city. A city that did Avodah Zarah doesn't change the halacha. They also bring the same karbanos as anybody else would, a Yachid. And then they started yevamos now that there's a 16th one, that the Mishnah, which is the mother of the live brother that the dead brother could have married. Why doesn't it say it? So the Gemara says because according to Yehuda, he could not have married her because he holds the Anusha Sab of his husband. To be continued. Okay, we'll continue. Lachos Purim in a couple of minutes. Welcome, everybody. Back to Hilchos Purim. Yesterday was a question, but the Ramah says that Minig is not in the Ramah was in Taf Reish Tzadi Aleph. We'll get that back in a second. But the Ramah says the Minig is not to make a stick at the end of the Megillah, and that we said that the Gemara says that you should. And I just see that the Taz, the Gemara says that the Taz and the Bach, look what they say, and it's a Tamir Gadol, it's Tzarichin Gadol. Big question. He said the Taz says that he thinks the reason not to make a stick is because there's machlokas if it's supposed to be in the end or in the beginning, so they don't make it at all. So the Gemara says Tamir Gadol, maybe make both. But and some Megillas do have both also. Some people make both. I mean, the ones that have
Most of them you see
without.
Yes.
No sticks at all.
It's like
So-
what time David brought yesterday.
Just like that, that's how I see most of them.
The ones that have a case, the ones that are in a case, you roll it in,
Right.
and then there has also a stick usually at the front in order that it shouldn't
Pull it.
fill in. You know, it shouldn't go into the case. You wouldn't be able to. You'll lose it. So I don't know if they make it at dafka, but it comes out that it's somewhere in the beginning either. Also.
He doesn't have to.
Okay, so that's the Ramah says. The Ramah says the minhag is not to make a stick. Just to look at it
But I
again.
thought originally you were saying, or Chaim David was saying, Ahmed meant the space.
So
I mean,
also.
you don't make a space at the end, doesn't make sense. I thought that what you read yesterday was that at the end, there has to be a space.
We were talking about if the word amud means a column or it means a stick. So
Yeah.
it comes out that means a stick. Usually when the Gemara says how much space you have to leave space in order to roll it around the stick. Kedei luck of amud. And the one at the beginning, you're going to leave the one you make one roll out of it. You don't make two rolls, right?
Just probably for cover.
To lugul hekif, to
Yeah.
get the circumference. And they talk about when you have a stick, that's when you have a stick. So you have to have enough blank space in order to wrap it around the stick. But you need a stick. So here, the Ramah says that the custom is not to make a stick. And that's reading the Mishnah Berurah again. I feel that's want to see what the Mishnah Berurah says again. We saw it yesterday, but just now that it's
That it was positive.
that was in Halacha Beis. The end of Halacha Beis. Kam lagu shelo lasas lo amud klal. And on that the Mishnah Berurah says, to grow up b'biura mafakfik al zemod. That's why he says sarchim gadol. He says very hard. As far as that the Taz says is because there's machlokas if it should be in the beginning or the end. So don't make it at all. So he doesn't think so. So
What are the Mechaber?
the Mechaber doesn't talk about a stick.
Does governments have?
Oh, I'm
sticks?
sorry. The Mechaber says it needs a stick at the end.
Yeah,
And the Ramah says the custom is not to make it all, and that the Taz says the reason is because machlokas if it should be in the beginning or the end. So the Gemara doesn't agree to that. He make one at the end.
Does governments have sticks?
I think so. Yeah. That's also when you see the pictures of a Megillah. How does it look?
It has a stick on the
Has a
left
stick,
side.
no? It's maybe other reasons that the pictures like that, but they have one stick. But okay, what? It's also easier. There's a question about touching the cloth also. That's a side thing to wash your hands before you touch the cloth. Okay. So where are we up to? We're still recording. Just to go.